It was in college when I first got really interested in Alexander, and it was in a class on Greek art. And, we'd studied Athens and we'd studied Delphi. And then one day, my teacher was talking about Alexander, and he goes, "Oh, yeah." And he founded a city in what is now Kandahar, Afghanistan. And I was like, wait, what? Because we tend to think of like the classical world rather narrowly. It's like Greece and Rome and Homer and Virgil. And these places didn't exist in isolation. Like they're part of this much bigger world that incorporates Europe and the Mediterranean and the Middle East and the coast of North Africa and, trade routes that go as far as India and China. And I, it's always true, but you can really see it in the period of Alexander. So that's when I first got fascinated because it was the way of understanding the world I was familiar with, the classical world, within this bigger context.
Mhm.
Um, so yeah, and I thought about it for a long time and finally decided like this is also the way to make other people, like to make readers understand that. Yeah, I mean, Macedonia was from the Greeks of the time perspective, like slightly déclassé because they were a kingdom and they had, a lot of the Greek city-states like Athens had democracies and constitutions and so on. And in fact, the great orator Demosthenes, from Athens, once talked about Alexander's father, and he says he's not even a barbarian from any place that can be named with honor. He's just a knave from Macedonia, where you can't even get a good slave, which is, trust me, in Greek minds, the ultimate insult. So it's, it's a very like they see the Macedonians as kind of a little bit other, even though they're politically allied with them and they speak the same language and worship, give or take, the same gods. But yes, you're absolutely right that also every Greek city is its own little place. They're not really unified until like after the United States. Really, it's in the early 19th century.
So
It's
you
not clear. He inherits from his father the goal of fighting the Persian Empire, along with this amazing army. And you have to remember when he inherits those things, he is 20. Mind-boggling, right? And he starts off and wins a series of very effective battles, culminating in Gaugamela, as you mentioned, in which he defeats, a number of the best armies the Persian king could lead against him. And I think everybody at that point is expecting him to kind of cash in and go home, take his extraordinary winnings and go back to Macedonia. Remember that at this point he's 25, and I think his interest in sitting on a throne in Macedonia after he's had a taste of the Persian Empire is about where you'd think a 25-year-old would be. Yeah, that is not his vision, but also what he recognized that I think many people of his time from Greece and Macedonia, but also later historians have not, is that's only about halfway through the Persian Empire. And there's this whole other half. So he'd gotten to the heartland of Persia, which is present day Iran. But the Persian Empire goes to Central Asia, like Uzbekistan, Tajikistan, Turkmenistan, Afghanistan, and then Pakistan. All of that is still there. And it's really wealthy, particularly the area of present day Pakistan, which contributed something like a third of the wealth to the Persian treasury. So it's a hugely, yeah, gold dust. Really a good thing to have. Also very fertile. Um, and what is now present day Afghanistan and Uzbekistan had some of the best horses in the empire, and so the best cavalry. So there was both a sort of pull, like the pull of further conquest of really wealthy places, and also this push of like they have a really good military. And if Darius gets to these people and brings them against what Alexander's carved out of the Persian Empire, he could lose it all again.
Mhm.
And so his vision by the time he gets to the period after Gaugamela is he's got to keep going in order to hold what he has.
Let's see.
Yeah, I mean, I think he's simultaneously kind of has this incredible ambition and drive, but there are good logical reasons, and I think a lot of scholars have portrayed him as just kind of a megalomaniac. He had his moments, but there are also sort of strategic military and political reasons why he would want to do this. And I feel like that's important to kind of do justice to both of them. Yeah, I mean, I feel like the Greeks are like the connoisseurs of desire because it's like the number of, words for snow for the indigenous peoples in Alaska and stuff. Like they have all kinds of different words for desire, and pothos is particularly that one for the desire of what you don't have. And I think Alexander had it in spades. Although the other thing I would say is like this is a period where what is most valued is political and military, sort of political power secured by military force. I don't think Alexander was wanting something different
Mhm.
than many people of his era. He was better at getting it.
Mhm.
So it's a combination of things.
Right.
I mean, one thing about Alexander that was striking is that, like JFK, he was so famous even within his lifetime that everybody who had any contact with him wrote a memoir. So his major generals wrote memoirs. The helmsman of his ship wrote a memoir. His doctor wrote a memoir. Even his dream interpreter, and yes, that is the job in the Macedonian army, wrote a memoir about his dreams. So we really know a lot about them. So we don't have any of those direct sources now, but later historians like the great Plutarch had those accessible and were able to draw upon them.
Got it.
So we have these things where we know like his favorite book, the Iliad, his favorite hobbies, running and hunting, his dreams. Like we have a lot of fine-grained, like weird little trivia about him that we don't have about almost anybody else in the ancient world, with the possible exception of Jesus Christ, because of that fame.